story is I'm a police officer, and what happened was in 2009 I started doing a desk job, an administrative job, and after about a year and a half, I noticed I was getting pain in my right hand and right shoulder, and I thought I put it down to just being RSI. So that went for quite a couple of years, and then I noticed I couldn't do repetitive movements with the right hand anymore, like simple things like brushing your teeth or repetitive motions like, say, mashing potatoes or something. And that sort of gradually got worse. And then one of the other things I noticed, first of all, was handwriting started to go really small and struggle to handwrite. And I thought, oh, okay, this isn't right. So I went to my GP, who referred me straight on to a neurologist. But the GP originally said, oh, I won't Parkinson's, you're too young. But I didn't think anything of it, didn't mind. And I went to the neurologist, and within one session, he diagnosed me, and we were on leave over the next day. So I put down being quite lucky in terms of it didn't take me very long I suppose I let it go for about a year, but in terms of medical diagnosis, it was really only 3 months. And I think luckily I had a very good GP who was on the ball straight away. And my neurologist is brilliant. I really like. He just picked it straight away. He said, the first meeting, he essentially said, "Look, I believe it's this. We'll try on it over," and it was pretty much an instant. I didn't accept it in terms of I didn't believe it, but that's a different story again. But when you start having positive reactions to medications, it's pretty much going to be the same as what it is. But I think also, like, my symptoms are pretty adamant, that it was Parkinson's, like a tremor in the right hand, slow movement. It really wasn't going to be anything too much else. So I don't think I was that hard to diagnose. But other than that, he did a good job. Professionally, I had changed to be off frontline policing anyway, so there wasn't a massive change in terms of professionalism. What I did was, as soon as I found out, I had told my bosses and that straight away, and they were extremely supportive. There was never an issue in relation to employment and issues like that. Personally, it was definitely something that was hard to accept. It was like accepting your mortality, that something can go wrong, and something has gone wrong, and you think to yourself, "I'll never happen to me." When it does happen to you, it took me a long time to accept it. But I'm here now, so I'm getting by, and nothing's really drastically changed for me. I reckon probably the last year's probably a bit harder than the original. I've been diagnosed 5 years now. So I think for about 3 to 4 years, last 3 to 4 years, I've been pretty good. This year's been my hardest year in terms of disease progression. So I'd probably say initially it was easy to adapt to because there wasn't much of a change. But now, as I'm seeing more changes, like a bit more tremoring, noticeable off state, I'm find it harder now to adjust rather than back then. So, but at the same time, I think that's also just a level of accepting that that's what it is as well. Like, this is my new normal. Unfortunately, my new normal is going to continuously change until it's all over. So it's going to be about adjusting all the time. Surprised, I'd say, like, probably my level of anxiety has certainly increased. So that's the biggest thing I've had to adjust to, is in terms of it's just planning my day. Whereas for your whole life you just live on a whim and do whatever you need to do, and the basics of life just goes on. But now with this, I've really got to plan. Even eating has become hard, so I can't eat certain foods at certain times, whereas beforehand you just eat it whenever you want. And that's probably one of the hardest things I had to deal with, is not eating when I want to eat, eating when I need to eat to fit in medication to be on all the time. Yeah, the motor symptoms are something I can deal with. You just do what you need to do to get by during the day. But yeah, it's definitely Definitely the anxiety and the overthinking that's been created because of the disease, which I never had before. I'm not too bad in terms of not socializing with people, but like definitely, for an example, like if I'm going out to drop the girls to my daughters to school, so before the medication kicks in, I'll be worried. Okay, I've got to do this, got to do that. I'm going to be slow doing this, and then as soon as the medication kicks in for me, I get this instant relief, and the anxiety literally almost disappears completely, and then reappears 2 or 3 hours later when you start feeling the symptoms kick back in. So that's something that's been hard to accept is the up and down anxiety of your day to day life, which I'd never had before. Never had. I used to be sort of happy go lucky, I suppose, and pretty easy going. But now there's definitely patches during the day where you're like, oh, this is hard work. Those they are by far the greatest things that have happened to me. Greatest things, that's terrible. The greatest people I've ever had in my life. It's definitely like my wife's been a massive support. She was with me from day one, and she just basically said to me, the day of the diagnosis, when it hit us like a brick, she just said, "Look, I'm here. I'll look after you. It's all going to be okay." And I just knew it, so I was like, "Oh," and the girls like they were pretty young, like they're a bit older now. And my oldest daughter's doing occupational therapy, so she's learning a bit more about the condition. She's doing occupational therapy at university, so she's learning about the condition now. So she's got a bit more of an understanding. My middle daughter, she's all over it. She wants to do medicine, so she's learning about all the stuff as well. She has an understanding. My youngest is just in her own world, and that's the best thing about her. But they're very supportive, and what we use a lot here in our home is humor. Like we laugh about it all the time. We laugh about me trying to pick up cups or slowly trying to do things, and you got to laugh, because if you don't laugh, what's the point? So we use humor a lot to cope with it. When it initially happened, my wife was working part time and she was looking after our girls who were younger. That she had to take on a full time position because we didn't know the prognosis of what was going to happen to me. So essentially, she just stepped up straight away, and she's been working full time ever since. So she's quite busy. Like she organises everything around the house because I can't organise anything. I'm hopeless, and she's just amazing. And I do. It's hard because I often feel a bit guilty that she will one day probably have to look after me, and I don't want that for her. Yeah, like I never want that for her. But that's something that. But like she says to me all the time, you don't speak for me. I speak for myself. So, but she's definitely the best thing in my life, and she's amazing. I don't know what I'd do without her. I'd get by, but I'd rather not. No, I think like because I do every day. I wake up at about 3:30 in the morning because I'm awake anyway. So that's the one thing. Well, as soon as I'm awake, and I'll go downstairs and I'll start doing weights and exercising before I go to work if I'm doing a day shift for the day. Sometimes like resistance training will exasperate the slow movement, but I've also find mentally if I don't get up and do it, I feel even worse. So if I don't get up and exercise during the day, in the morning, I'll definitely feel really bad for the rest of the day. So that's one thing is like I always work hard and make sure I'm up getting physical each day and moving and that because that keeps me going for the rest of the day. I was pretty lucky in terms of like we've always been very active in our family anyway. We've always exercised, we've always played sports and all sorts of different things. So it wasn't a hard transition. It was probably once I knew that exercise slowed the progression, it was just more of a motivation to continue exercising and exercising more than I was beforehand. So yeah, so it's in that way it's a good thing. It's provided me with that extra motivation to keep going, keep moving. And like yeah, I agree with you. Like if I don't do it, if I don't exercise early in the morning or any time during the day, I can feel it for the whole day, and it's probably more a mental game. I feel so much better mentally once I've been active. So yeah, it's definitely that's the most important thing to me. I do work hard at it, and I think it probably played a good role as to why I'm still working full time shift work. Still running around the girls with all their activities and everything else is because I remain active and just I try not to stop. Like there's no point in stopping, so I might as well do it while I can. I certainly think it's a takeaway from it is it was one thing that I accepted my mortality and that something can go wrong in your body, and obviously it has for me. Whereas beforehand, you always think you're bulletproof, nothing's going to happen. It happens to everyone else. And when I got that diagnosis, I remember for about 3 months thinking, "Why me? Why me? What did I do wrong?" And then I just slowly accepted it and went, "Well, why not me?" And it's just however it's come about, like whatever, whether it's I don't know how I developed it. I don't really care either. It's there now. But it's definitely like it makes you appreciate life more, and you know that it's quite fragile, and at any point in life you get turned off. And I knew that because as I said, I've been a police officer for 20 years, and I've seen all sorts of things happen to people. And yeah, so I did have an idea that life was fragile when you do get a diagnosis like this, and you do realize that at some point things are going to get worse. You do realize that. And as I said, life can end at any point, and you don't know when it's going to be. So you've got to enjoy every day while you've got it. I don't necessarily do it where I am because the funny thing is, like, I'm quite busy in terms of I still run the girls around. Like they're competitive gymnasts, so they train like 25 hours a week, and I work full time. And I don't really, I haven't really connected with anyone in with the region I'm living in because I'm right up in the northern part of Australia. And because mainly the only reason for that is most people in town where I live in towns are quite a lot older than me that have been diagnosed with it. So there's not very many people that I can relate to in terms of like I can't go and relate with a 75-year-old person because they're retired, they're finished. I'm 43, 44 now, and I still got younger kids. So I don't tend to not that I have anything against the group, I just can't relate to it. It's a totally different scenario. But ever since like starting on Instagram, that's probably been an indirect group, so I can see what everyone else is going through, and you can see how many people around the globe are in a very similar position to me. And you go, "Oh God, it's not just me," and you just watch their reels and watch their posts and stuff like that. And it's so much easier to connect via social media than it is to go out and actually be in a group, especially in my circumstance was as busy as we are. So it's so much easier to log on Instagram for 5 or 10 minutes and see what someone else is doing, and go from there. So I don't feel isolated because I'm probably more connected now than I ever have been in the whole diagnosis in the last 12 months since I jumped on Instagram. It's not a death sentence. It's just it is what it is. It's not. Some days are bad. Some days are great. Everyone's going to go through something different. Don't jump on the internet and look up advanced Parkinson's like I did when I first got diagnosed. It's a big mistake. It was the stupidest thing I ever did because you think, I would always think to myself, what is going to happen to me? But it hasn't. So it's just you will grow to accept it more as you go along and you take control of your own life. So that was my advice to myself, thinking back to when I was first diagnosed. I remember my neurologist saying to me, "You come back and see me in 12 months, and you'll be a totally different person, and you'll have a lot more control over what your thoughts and actions of the disease." And he was completely right. Like, if you'd seen me in the first 6 months from diagnosis, I was an absolute mess. But after that, 12 months later, it is what it is. Just keep going, keep rolling. Because, as I said, it's not a death sentence. It's not fun, but it's not the worst thing in the world either. There's a lot of people out there that are a lot worse off than me. I saw it posted by another Instagram guy. I can't think of him offhand at the moment, but and I'm going to get back on it. It was definitely keto, like eating a keto diet and fasting. And I followed my neurologist put me onto one of his friend, Dr. Matthew Phillips, who's a neurologist at Waikato University, and he's done a lot of lectures on ketogenic diet or fasting with Parkinson's. And I must admit, when I was doing full ketogenic diet and the full fasting, I saw drastic improvement. But I've gotten lazy. I like sugary foods, but that's one thing I would say to people: give it a go, because I definitely saw a massive improvement. I'm going to start going back. I'm going to get into it a lot more in the next few months and go from there. But if anyone's going to jump on YouTube and look up Dr. Matthew Phillips and the ketogenic diet and Parkinson's, he's brilliant to listen to. He's very smart, and it's, as I said, it worked for me, and I'll obviously I think it's done me good, so I'm going to keep going.